All eyes on South Carolina. It's a huge day, particularly for the Republican Party, because if Donald Trump has a gargantuan win, and a lot of polls say he's leading by that much, it could be all she wrote. Joining me now, Representative Zeldin, Christian Whiton, and Georgette Mosbacher. Representative Zeldin, I want to start with you. Before we get into South Carolina, Donald Trump telling folks to boycott Apple. I mean, he's running for the highest office in the land as a Republican. What do you think about that? What do you feel about that?
Well, I think it's up to individual Americans to decide whether or not to boycott Apple. I mean, for me personally, I have an iPhone, an iPad. I get the debate of why he may go there, but I don't think I'm ready to jump on the boycott Apple bandwagon tonight. You know, who knows? Maybe it's polling well in South Carolina.
Okay, let's switch back to South Carolina then. In a Fox News poll that was out yesterday in South Carolina, I noticed an interesting trend. Would never vote for Donald Trump went from 24 to 39, and for Ted Cruz went from 8 to 19. Are we starting to get to a point where maybe the GOP race is going to start to damage the eventual winner to the point where they can't win in a general election?
Well, I would say on both sides. I mean, the fact is Hillary is basically unelectable at this point. There's not much more for her to go as far as unfavorables. This is the first time we're really starting to see some vetting of Bernie Sanders. There's a lot more to vet that guy about. And on the Republican side, yeah, I mean, the more that the debate drives on and we go one state after another, and people are beating each other up, the higher unfavorables go, it makes it harder. But I would offer, I mean, listen, when I go to sleep at night, I hope and I pray that the Democrats nominate either Bernie Sanders or Hillary Clinton as their nominee. As long as they nominate one of their two candidates, I think we'll be okay in November.
Hey, Christian, what's your feeling now? We're just one day away, and South Carolina is going to be extraordinarily pivotal one way or the other.
It's important. It won't be the final word. I think a really big indicator will be Super Tuesday, March 1st, also known as the SEC primary. But the poll you mentioned earlier, an earlier poll by the Wall Street Journal and NBC, all show sort of a key turning point. There's not a very clear trend yet, but some indications that Trump is fading, that Cruz is gaining. And the two things that happened, Trump had a disastrous debate performance where he was calling people liars, ranting and raving, looking very unpresidential. But also the death of Alito really has framed the debate more to Ted Cruz, who is going to have a backbone and push through more justices like Scalia, not like Justice Souter, and that really favors Cruz over Rubio, I think. So just a confluence of events. But South Carolina is an indication, but the people with the organization to take the fight through on Super Tuesday will be decisive, I think.
Yeah, the death of Scalia certainly, I think, did, Georgette, add to this. I think also the ground game. Ted Cruz's ground game is really phenomenal. Could that make the difference? But do you think the polls are right that it's tightening?
There is one poll that says that. Now, you know, we're going to find that out tomorrow. The real test is tomorrow. I don't think the majority of Americans are really deciding with respect to the Supreme Court.
What about South Carolina voters?
But South Carolina,
they're pretty sophisticated folks.
Yeah,
a lot of very conservative people down there.
They are, and we have 8 military bases there as well. But I do think that it is going to, tomorrow is very pivotal for a few people. Bush is one of them. I don't know if Bush can't pull off a double digit. I don't know where Bush goes from there.
Right.
I think Cruz clearly has a very good ground game. The question is, if Bush pulls out, where does his money go? Does it go to Rubio? All right. If Donald does a double-digit lead tomorrow, I think Donald becomes pretty hard to beat.
So 35,
I do think tomorrow could be a big deal.
If he's at 35 and the next person's at 25, that makes him unstoppable? Who runs the table?
No, I think it has to be, there's probably has to be bigger than that.
Right.
But I do think that at double digit, if he can pull out something above 10% over the next person, I got to say, I think, you know, he's gone. He's on a roll.
Representative Zeldin, there's a lot of talk. Obviously, the 2 top candidates now are the outsiders. Is there a point somewhere during this campaign where they make overtures to Congress, to the sort of inside community? Because ultimately, if one of them wins, they do have to work with Congress.
Well, I think, you know, we still have a long way to go before they get to that point. They're still competing for conservative primary voters. Super Tuesday still ahead of us. So I think that, we'll continue to see Donald Trump, Ted Cruz, continuing to campaign the way they have been campaigning until they have what they hope to be more of a comfortable margin. I wouldn't expect them to change their plans, their strategy, because it might be perceived that they might be selling out if all of a sudden they start reaching out to other parts of the Republican Party that they've stayed away from.
Although, Chris, we did hear Donald Trump in an interview hint that he would bring in someone more of a seasoned politician, if you will.
Right, but you have to remember, people hate Congress. I mean, running against Congress, being at loggerheads of Congress is actually a winner at the polls right now. That's been sort of dinged as a negative, for example, Cruz and his relations with other senators. But standing against that very unpopular institution, ultimately, whoever the nominee is will have a huge incentive to cooperate with congressional Republicans. And if that person becomes president, hopefully, then, again, congressional Republicans and a president, their interests will be one and the same, and there will be cooperation. But being at loggerheads with Congress right now is not a negative, I don't think, if you're seeking the Republican nomination.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you, and I think the notion that no one in the Senate endorsed Cruz, he wears it as a badge of honor. Thanks a lot, guys.